Hello, over-engineered tubers, and welcome back to Let's Play Final Fantasy Renaissance. With me, BlueAnkylo, and a sneeze. Oof, no, held it back. You know, that terrible feeling when you need to sneeze and then you don't sneeze, and then it feels weird. Sorry. Where was I? I'm trying to control my game guy. My little dude, Sid, yeah. Renaissance Solo Engineer. This is it. This should be the final episode, almost for sure. So, we're obviously very strong at level 48, and even if we just attack things, our damage is... Ooh... I mean, I don't know every class's level 50 stats on the top of my head, sorry, but I have to say that we've done pretty well for ourselves with a Smith Hammer. This is, what, 5 hits? At a pretty high damage? I would say this is... Although we don't have any special effects, it's not like anti-undead, it doesn't do ice or fire, it doesn't have an Excalibur or a 10% crit. I think a katana is only 15, so we have a second highest crit weapon. Like a high, I think even the good spears only had an 8% crit rate. So we have a quite high crit rate for most normal weapons. Decent hit rate. I mean, given our level, I think fighters tend to be one more swing, but the difference between 5 attacks and 6 attacks is not that huge. And then the base damage is really good, I think, 65. Hard to beat that with almost any support or caster in terms of just base weapon. So even just like that, we're looking pretty good. Absorb 65, basically a knight tier armor. Evade is actually pretty good too, honestly. This is currently with the Genji bracelet. So our plus 150 health. Our vanilla HP is not crazy good, but we can always craft one of those big boy armors. Now, in a full group composition, who knows who you want to give this to? You can only have one. But at least for a solo engineer, it's certainly up for grabs. If you were doing a more support style, then you could give out all your crafted items. Very much like an artificer in D&D. In terms of other Genji gear, the gloves, rather than the mithril gloves, might be something to consider if you need more damage. But I don't think I do, actually. I'm okay with the damage debuff and my overall very high absorb. But we'll see. Also, the run, definitely, if you prefer to run your way from the final dungeon rather than fight your way, these might be viable. But I don't think we're going to need to run very often, because some of these tools are really good. So I think that's it. That's all to say. In terms of weapons, we do have the ruse if we need it. I think I've kind of given up on guns, although there is one more gun in this dungeon. The thing is, the guns don't scale on your level very well, because they're a set number of hits. So you could think of guns as kind of a low-level challenge perfection. Like if you're a really low-level engineer, getting 6 attacks on a low damage, the next one is 6 attacks, against a single target. That might be pretty viable if your level is low and your base hit percent is not that great. But I have a feeling at relatively average levels, the Master Hammer will out DPS. Like, you don't need to be level 48, but I think probably 30 plus, somewhere around then, your hammer's going to outpace the final gun damage. And that's not to say tools either, because the hammer does boost our tools. I suppose I should pick the gun up, just to make sure I've shown it off. I'll try some random tools here for science. Molotov, not... I mean, they're weak to fire, but the base damage isn't quite enough to kill a dragon reliably. Not that it's too far off. I think what you do if you really want to kill an enemy group quickly, you use Buzzsaw. That's pretty insane damage. Now, I have heard, through the grapevine, that those tools are affected by spells like Fast, Temper, and the Power Glove Saber effect that's on our backup hammer. So we might be able to do so. We can't cast Fast on ourselves, unfortunately, but we might be able to make those pretty spicy. Let's try a couple gunfights, although you would need to... Unfortunately, I would have to use my warp stone just to power this up with the fire crystal or something. Which is another reason I think you should just be able to augment stuff on the fly. Because if you don't bring, you know, a normal warp or exit caster, anything you get in the final dungeon you can't even augment anyway, and that's kind of our main thing, you know. Anyway, I don't think the damage here will be all that impressive. It is crits, so it's, you know, avoiding armor, but I mean, 400 damage, it's pretty good. Was that a high roll? 420? Maybe I underestimated the level the hammer would be better at. 300 to 400 damage, regardless of enemy defense. Yeah, it's still pretty good. And we could certainly, again, if you had the ability to enchant it to do fire, it would go from 5 damage to 8 damage. And because it's 6 hits and it's all crits, it's like, instead of plus 3 to 6 damage, it's plus 6 to 12 damage, averaging 9, I think. And then 6 hits is 54. So you might be doing 400 to 450 damage or something around that range. Which, if we do some hammering, we might see is not enough. The thing is, the hammer makes our tools better, and the tools, I think, have a higher ceiling. Although our hammer just hit for 700, so... yeah. Unless the enemy has an awful lot of absorb, I think this hammer might technically beat the gun. It may have a wider range or something, I don't know, but... it seems like it's going to one-shot most enemies. There are a few things in here that 400 damage won't one-shot. I think the worms, the bosses. There's not much with over 400 HP, but maybe the blue dragons if they're available. I don't think they're actually random in here. Anyway, Noise Blaster was really nice, as is tradition. I don't know the odds that they break out of Confused, but it's definitely, like, less than 50%, I think. Although you can get bad luck, but... You could try out the repeater, see how much damage this is doing. These guys have not enough armor. Well, it does do a lot of hits. That was, like, 9 attacks. Our strength is getting pretty good. 41 strength isn't that bad. You know, our strength growth in the high levels here has been better than I was kind of expecting. Now, I know this guy has a lot of armor. Didn't matter. Maybe the gun would have done more, but hey, one hit's one hit. Where's my phantom? Yeah, 60 absorb is very high, but didn't make a difference. Wait. Oh, I'm like, why is this here? Like, is this some sort of secret key item? No, that's just where all your schematics go. I forgot it. Okay, technically weak to fire. Yeah, not enough. I mean, it works, but not quite good enough. So don't worry, even the max level good intelligence, or crazy good intelligence, really, engineer, the base 60 tools are still not quite enough for the final dungeon. Like, if you had other party members, it's totally fine, but I don't think we're going to be sweeping much. Although these guys, yeah, they're weak to fire with not too crazy HP, so that's one. But I think even Fire 2 usually kills those guys, so... This is Fire 2.5, because we do... I believe it is technically 90 fire damage, which is... I mean, to be fair, Fire 3 is base 100, and I think because of the intelligence boost, we're actually doing more than 100 base in terms of NES, because the NES doesn't have the multiplier for your intelligence. It just does the flat 100 to 200, or save for 50 to 100. So, we are doing legitimately over Fire 3 with a tool, which is kind of weird. Like, that's really strong, It's a shame that Fire 3 isn't actually a good enough spell to one-shot most of the final dungeon weak to fire enemies. It's actually kind of strange. Pretty sure I crafted a lot before the episode started, so we should be fine on stuff like that. But yeah, this is where we could try running. Not from these guys, but we're level 50 already. There's not much point killing things other than, well, I want to show off some of my tricks, I guess, every now and then. We do need to conserve the heal potions. If we can't get all the way to chaos here, we'll be in trouble. So if we're not running, let's make sure we kill them quickly. Still, I think we're on a good pace so far. I think I don't want to give any chance of a second turn on the Lich. So, saw it down. Now, I did see it was like 400 damage there. That was worse than my normal chainsaw. Is the Lich 2... 50 absorb. Okay, I gotta keep an eye on high absorb enemies, and maybe they do eventually outscale my my quad saw a little bit. Yeah, it's not good enough. How about my repeater? Honestly, 700 damage on... It must get crits. Well, it just said 10%. I guess if you're doing 9 shots, one of them is likely to be a crit. But 700 damage must have been a lot of crits. Interesting. Could have done the confused strat, I suppose. 600, 400. So that still would have done about 2,000 damage to carry, which is far more than her max HP, even on New Game Plus. This would be pretty viable for New Game Plus, I think. I don't have a great, like, water enemy sweeper. None of these guys do much damage, and we can run from them. It's just, I don't think our run chance is amazing. Could try this. I still think this is too many turns to be that viable. Especially if you had a normal party that was fighting normally, like spending a turn to set up a weakness. I should have just been killing them, right? The confused turn to disable was worth it. But the debuff turn, maybe not. I don't know. I'll do it again. It's probably just kill saw or buzz saw or whatever that's the thing. I will summon some war mechs. Don't worry, that's on the to-do, but they're very expensive to build, and of course they self-destruct, so I think for a random battle they're generally a bad choice. Buzzsaw, I guess it does use enough spikes that even if you bring in 99 spikes, you can only use this 15, 24 times in the final dungeon. I mean, that's still a lot. I know, I've talked about the consumability being infinite. It is infinite with an asterisk in that you need to have a shop. And for the price of a level 8 spell, you can probably clear any dungeon using the saw, except maybe Topher. But it's not too far off. Oh, we could try the real spam again. Oh, try and remember how to get to the thing. Let's go back to silly mode. Doesn't last forever, but I do think this is gonna work pretty well. Oh, denied. I was like one step. Okay, I have to use the buzzsaw here. These guys hit too hard. I actually have the wrong. Now I. Yeah. AoE confused would have been great, but buzzsaw I think covers us. You wouldn't want to permanently lose the AoE confuse unless you have some other good AoE options, and the buzzsaw obviously covers us. But okay, so what I wanted to go was alarm. It hits itself for 770 damage. Yeah. Drill for 570. I mean, we could have two-shotted it like that, but we protected ourselves from taking any hits. And that was pretty awesome. I think between the Buzzsaw and the Noisemaker, these two basically allow a relatively decent level, maybe even a low level. Because, like, could any of these bosses outside of Chaos survive the alarm? Because they're all susceptible to it. And they hit themselves, like, other than the Lich, they all will kill themselves in a couple turns. I'm pretty sure. Like, obviously, Kraken hits the hardest, but... I think Chaos is immune, like, officially immune to Confusion, though. Yeah, he's got Resist Confusion, which means we can't do this strat to him. He's the only one that we can't... maybe the only enemy in the vanilla run that you can't confuse. Or the vanilla Renaissance, you know what I'm trying to say here. So it's going to be damage, right? I don't have any other statuses. I can't silence him. I do have a silence option, but I can't silence him. Okay, well, let's get in front of him first. But clearly the dungeon itself was basically pointless. I'll use the War Mech for Chaos. Because I might as well. I might still do Ruse strats for defense. Because it's still really good. Okay, so I think it's obviously Hammer. I don't really want to... I mean, the gun would probably kill Chaos in 5 attacks. If we do 400 damage, it's 5 shots, 5 turns, and you win. And that's not bad, but it's a bit boring. So what would be the best tool for a solo for each of the tools? Is there any options here? Well, AoE means nothing against Chaos. But I don't think Focus Crossbow will do any damage significantly. His base absorb is 100. So you got to keep that in mind for physical attacks. This would be 20 plus half my strength, which is about 21, so 31 base damage. The highest that rolls is 62, which 100 armor drops that to 1. So it will only do damage on crits. Basically nothing. So we can't make that work. He is not going to take any significant fire damage. Darkness you could inflict, but does nothing. Actually, having Blink might be kind of fun, so we could do that. You can't really poison him either. Now, I might be able to give him 1 elemental weakness, but it's not going to be poison, right? Like, I could strip one of his resistances down, or 2 of them, or go for random, but, I mean, if I randomed into poison, I could poison him and he would take bio damage. So keep in mind that I could give an elemental weakness randomly eventually, if I felt like it. Fire, not that great. Status, darkness, not going to do it. None of these are going to change. Aqua is not great. If he was weak to water, this would be a 180. And then the tool would turn it into basically a 270. So that's a more than nuke single target. But not as good as your attack. Doesn't really matter. I guess the Super Soaker is single target. Or you'd go for the random poison and try to get him with the status effect for funsies. That might be a joke. If I do a drill, this is good because it ignores his 100 armor. Yeah, we don't want AoE. I don't know which one of these is better. I guess it is relying on crits one way or the other. No, it ignores defense, so lots of hits is probably better, because you don't need the crit. We're going to do good damage no matter what. I mean, I think. I don't know exactly how much damage, but we can try. Alarm won't work here. We can't confuse or silence, so nothing we pick matters. Now, Death Element, he is resistant to, but theoretically we could random into Death Weakness. That would be pretty funny. Or we just go for damage. The thing is, this needs crits to hurt, because again, our base damage isn't quite high enough to pierce through the 100, I don't think. Maybe we do kind of see if we get a 50-50 insta-kill. And then the Warmech, maybe we just use him to defend us a bit, you know? That might be kind of funny. I'll have to do a little bit of crafting here. Hopefully I have enough stuff. Running out of spikes. Uh-oh. Well, that's one 50-50 chance if I happen to get the other thing. Well, I can always... Well, the other option... I think the odds of us randomly getting death and then getting a 50-50 is pretty tiny. If I had more craftables, which another reason craftables tools kind of suck, I could, I might be able to try the kill saw strat. But it might be better to go power glove buzzsaw, if nothing else works. Because that should do it. Once we get our sabered up enough. If we want to do something funny. I mean, we can still do that with the drill, though, right? It actually might be better on the drill. Ignores the defense anyway. I wish I knew for sure if drill or reckless drill did the most damage. I guess the difference is I have drills constructed. I don't have enough materials to keep going, so. You know what? If we get death, I will try. But we're going to start with defense, mech, ruse, and then I'm on a timer because I can't really heal myself very quickly. So we got to see if we can kill him before we run out of time. Alright, instant defense. Crack shouldn't be a problem. Then we summon the Warmech. Get him, boy. And then we start debilitating. Hold on. Make sure you guys can see what's going on for the final battle. Yeah, debilitator. Let's see. Oh, it's so hard to see. I saw wind and lightning. Water, lightning, earth. Doesn't really help me. Earth, lightning, wind. It's the trouble with random. Water, fire, lightning. Now, I actually... This might be my own mistake. Maybe you can't give him death weakness at all. It seems like there might be a short list of what is allowed. Lightning, wind, ice. Like, only the core classic elementals? Well, that was it. So I didn't get death. So I don't think this can work. I was kind of waiting for him to do that anyway. Okay. Well, let's see... So I don't even think we got him with poison weakness. Like, poison's an element, but I don't think we ever got him with it. So it seems like you only get, like, fire, ice, lightning, water, wind, earth. Like the, you know, the somewhat classic elements. If it doesn't include, you know, holy, earth, stone, poison, status, death, time, then I guess it's a little bit easier to control what... Like, this makes the random one better with, like, a black mage or somewhat like a blue mage, people with the standard elements. It unfortunately means that my combos here are a bit worse, because I can't get poison. I can get fire and water, but that's all we can synergize with, I think, and you need... It just limits who you can make friends with, basically. I forget if I've already been hit to lose my shadows, but let's... I was kind of hoping it would hit my Warmech, actually. Anyway, let's just see how much damage the drill does. 650, that's a lot. We could have killed him by now, absolutely. Let's do this, though. Because apparently, these work with your tools, which does make some sense. So we're going to see just how drilled he gets. I don't think this will be a new record for damage, but I'm fairly confident we can one-hit him. I almost want him to cure 4 again, but that means we get nuked, so I don't know. Yeah, 220, not too bad. But I think we need to swing pretty quick here. Because another nuke technically can roll up and kill us. So let's go with the Mega Drill. Sid uses Mega Drill. It's actually not that good. 855. All that power gloving might have helped a little bit, but didn't seem to make much difference. Huh. Yeah, I mean, we killed him one way or the other, but not amazing. I'd say solo Sid. I guess solo engineer. If I was to redo it, now that I know how the debilitator works, I would have just gone with the 4x saw and tried to power glove that up and see how much damage it could do. So that's kind of it. I mean, there's a little bit more sciencing I want to do now that I'm done. I want to fight something. I want to test out the drill a little bit more, because it seemed like it didn't scale up as much as I thought it should, right? Basic drill 525. I'm still a little bit concerned that these crafted augmented spell things don't work the way they're supposed to. Like, it says the spell goes off, but does the damage... Like, it doesn't seem... Maybe drill's unaffected by it. Maybe I was wrong. Seems like that didn't change the damage on the drill, right? So let's check our damage. If we attack, we've been doing, like, I think 700 or 800 pretty reliably against these dragons, right? Okay, let's see... Let's make sure the Power Glove works at all, right? Been using it on the tools and kind of let down, but let's see if it's actually just me. 3 levels of Power Glove should have us hitting... I feel like it's supposed to be like plus 12 base damage per cast. It's like plus 36, if it's working, should be... Well, we should be hitting a lot. 570, that's worse. I wonder if the Saber spell moved over really doesn't work. Because that doesn't look like it's gone up at all. In fact, the first 2 hits were below average. Unless Chimeras have way more armor than a Frost Dragon? 28? I mean, they got a little bit more, but that's maybe one. Well, we try it here. Let's try like 5 casts. We'll be really patient. But I have a feeling this might be a bit of a bug. I don't know. I have definitely noticed much quicker scaling in normal use of the Power Glove. If we hadn't unenchanted it, I feel like I've seen the numbers on melee attacks go up. Like, noticeable with 1 or 2 casts, and extremely noticeable if you do 5 or 6, you know. To the point where you're hitting thousands of damage pretty quick. 1 more turn, then we gotta start killing. Alright, come on, Sid. Okay, it definitely works. Never mind. It just took a while. I guess it's because we're not fasted or anything. Suddenly 7 hits and 2, 3... Okay. It took a little more than a couple. That's the small sample size going for you. Okay, well, if it definitely works on your hammer, we're sciencing it up here. Let's see if it definitely works on the drill if we go a little bit deeper. Now's when we need that green mage support to regen us. I'm going to try to get a fight with more than 1 enemy, though, so I can get a... If I'm going to spend, like, 10 turns gloving, yeah, 3 will be enough. Okay, so, actually, a good amount of the damage we take is from physical hits. Let's maybe take less damage by doing that? I don't know. Should do this against 3 worms, actually. They don't have any magic attacks or anything, so then we'd be pretty safe to charge up. Okay, 1, 2... 3... Oops. 4... Do Frost Dragons really only have 8 armor? Why do they have so low armor? 5, I think. That's theoretically plus 60 or more damage per hit. It should be huge. 7. And you also get like an accuracy bonus, the hit percent. I don't think in most versions it gives you extra swings. It just gives you like accuracy. But in Renaissance, this damage up also includes accuracy in terms of hit numbers. That's why we went from 5 attacks to 7 attacks. So Power Glove is buffed in a way, as long as you're getting extra swings. Maybe that's it. Maybe the swings are working, but no, 3,000 damage needs both to be working. Okay, we've probably done around 10 of those. Let's see if the drill can do more than like whatever was averaging like 500, 400, 500 damage. 500. I don't think it works with the drill. One more drill in case it was a bad roll. 7 hits. 700. We'll do one more drill. I don't think that's scaling the same. You know, my 3 hammer hits and we were doing 3,000 damage with a little bit of crit luck. Okay, let's not do the chain. Let's not do the drill anymore, but I will assume that the drill does not get buffed properly by the Power Glove. I want to do the Buzzsaw, though, because that's the best one. This should work. I guess they have a fire attack, too, technically. But it's even worse than the dragons. Okay, 1... I think this is my last test. And then I'll do my recap on Solo Engineer and just my general thoughts on the class. I think this is number 4. Counting is hard. Guess I could summon the War Mech while I do these too. If I really am doing like 10 turns of charging. But the War Mech honestly might be killing them anyway. It probably would just kill them. Even the blue War Mech hits hard enough. I don't really think the War Mech is a really all that useful final thing. I also didn't use my limit, but it literally makes me worse. I'll talk about that when we get to the recap here in a minute. Okay, let's see. So our Buzzsaw unbuffed has been doing like 800 or 900 damage. Yeah, it's about the same as always. So I feel like for the most part, the tools do not seem to be affected by Power Glove, at least not the version I have. So maybe they work with like the Bard song or something. Like maybe I've been getting conflicting reports, you know. Maybe there are some ways to boost the damage. Maybe the fast spell does work. Maybe Bard, the Valor Dance, the plus damage work on the Bard works. Maybe there's some other jobs that have some buffing damage type passives, I think. This Dancer has something, I think, right? But it doesn't feel like those are working on our engineer right now. I guess I could... I don't know if I want to. Do you want to see if it works on the crossbow? I don't know. I wish there was something in the game that told you if it was compatible or not, so you didn't have to just guess. I don't know how you'd do it exactly, but... there's too many combinations, and they're not really consistent. Like, technically you cannot temper Black Belt Fists, Bard Harps, or Guns for extra damage. But, you know, 2 of those are weapons, and I can sort of see why, but the game doesn't really tell you. You just have to test it out and see that it doesn't work. So those are like the fairly easy ones. But the tools, I mean, so far it seems maybe consistent that they don't get buffed, which is fine. But then maybe it'd be nice for somewhere to say like, okay, tools do not accept temper, but they do accept fast. Assuming fast works, or if only the bard music works, or maybe some of these are bugs. Like maybe this is not intentional. Like maybe it is supposed to work, or maybe none of them are supposed to work. Like there is a bit of that still trying to figure it out. Anyway, this should be enough. Now these guys have relatively low armor, right? One last check. More than I thought. Yeah, 8 absorb. Honestly, is that the lowest dragon armor? Usually, I assume dragons would have really good armor class. I've never really looked at that. That's kind of funny. Frosties. Where are the other Ds? Yeah, see, this is more what I normally expect. Something like 30. Huh. The red D, normally you'd probably fight first if you're doing the standard route. And that's a way higher defense dragon. Where's the zombie D? He's like the third one you'd fight. 30 again. Okay, and then you might fight a gas dragon in the waterfall if you're unlucky. It's very rare. 16, so those are like closer to frost dragons. Interesting. They're like, I think they're the next tier in terms of HP, right? Like you can kind of rank them by how much HP they have. These guys are the weakest, 200. And then the next one is 250, but a lot more absorb. And then 286, similar absorb. And then 353, but now the absorb goes down. And then blue dragons are the strongest in terms of HP, and the absorb is still in the middle. It's kind of, I wonder how they decided those numbers. You know, it's not consistent. They're not all the same. They don't. The one that is the strongest doesn't also have the highest armor. So why is fire and undead way more absorbing than the theoretically strongest of the 5 dragons? And I think Tiamat, like that's one of the things. Tiamat has a lot of absorb too. So dragons are known usually for having really good absorb. Anyway, whatever. Point is, their absorb is really low, so repeater should be pretty good. I'm expecting a lot of damage. If Saber works, I'm expecting like 2000s. That's definitely no bonus from Saber. So, okay. So far, fairly safe to say you cannot self-buff your tools. That doesn't really change my opinion of anything, but I wanted to make sure that was thoroughly tested at least, because I've had some comments, so hey, I tested it out. That's not to say the spell temper, the dance, the music, the whatever else, the fast spell, that they don't work, but at the very least my self-sabered mithril hammer works on my hammers, my weapons, my equipped weapon, but it does not work on tools. I can definitely say that. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Let's talk about Engineer in version 2.2. It is definitely one of the stronger classes in terms of tier listing, although they are mostly a support class in general. I would still classify them as a support class. They are the tankiest support class, the highest absorb, and decent HP overall. And they're really good at like giving your allies significant weapon upgrades. At the very least, plus 3 damage to all your weapons and plus 4 or 8 absorb or magic defense to everyone's armor. Even if you don't do much crafting, they just make everyone more survivable. On normal mode, everyone will be max absorb before, or have much higher max absorb and take very little damage. On New Game Plus, they'll still take damage, but it'll help. Or you can go with the magic defense route, which is pretty good too. And then in terms of weapon damage, that's just a nice passive buff. So that's just good. And yeah, they do get guns. I think most of the time the guns are on the weaker side. There's a few situations where you unlock them and they're pretty awesome for a little while. I think because they don't scale very well, your level doesn't affect them very much. They need maybe a little, I would say they need to be a little bit stronger to compete with tools and hammers, even just at the current tier. unless they're intended to be weaker. I don't like that you can only craft 1 scattergun if you wanted to have 4 engineers or something, because you should be able to make more than 1 for that, I think. It's kind of, same thing, you couldn't make 4 hammers either. If you had 2 engineers, 1 could be guns, 1 could be tools, but there's no use to have any more than 2 engineers at that point, which I guess it's okay, but just kind of weird. Yeah, so overall strong class. I would say above average. Definitely way stronger than like Green Mage and Archer and Evoker and Spellblade. All the ones that are bad. He's probably better than the Thief in terms of overall party support. Stuff like that. He's pretty good. And maybe in the high end. Maybe even top 5. Maybe. But that one depends on the tools. So the downside is a lot of money to get set up. Crafting is kind of too expensive. And, well, let's go through the skills now that we've known. I think the limit is stupid. I mean, it's really cool, but it's almost always a downgrade. I've never really seen any of these abilities do anything significant. And you're better off attacking with your hammer or using a tool, I think, most of the time. So a cool limit that doesn't scale well enough. It's only good like at low levels. Maybe, and even then, I don't know. The whole crafting and tool systems are very complicated, but they're definitely powerful. I like how the ores drop. I think this should be the standard for any class that has enemy drops, like the Archer. And the hammer buff is solid, and the smithing is good. I think I've said this a couple times. I think there should be more smith hammers around the map. Maybe Crescent Lake, maybe somewhere else, so you don't have to backtrack as much. And I think maybe you should be able to augment from this menu. The other thing is, I think deconstructing weapons and armor early game is really too much hassle, and the overall gold cost for tools and crafting, especially like making mithril armor, it's a lot of time and money investment for a marginally, like, it's an upgrade, but not always a clean upgrade, right? Like, you're depending on the class, some of the weapons are really good, like the enhancer sword for blue mage or red mage. Some of them are just sort of okay, some are pretty solid. The pre-promotion armor is like very expensive for the time, and it does get obsolete by flame armor, ice armor, stuff like that. So it's a bit tricky. I really like moving the augments around. I think that's the best part for me, is moving. It doesn't even change a lot of the game, but being able to move these crystals around is really cool. I think you should be able to do it on your own, like in the middle of a dungeon, because you should be able to pick up a fire axe that you can't equip, destroy the fire axe, and then make a fire crystal that you put into your armor to give you fire protection from the fire dragons and the fire boss, and then leave the fire dungeon where it doesn't matter anymore, but you still had that advantage for looting it out, basically. So I think that's kind of a minor thing, but backtracking all the way to Dwarf to do the changes is a bit of a hassle. Maybe there should be a way to take the ores and craft the elemental crystals. Maybe. That would let you get them a little earlier if you wanted, which might open up some strategies that I don't think would be all that overpowered, but would be a good utility. Because I think there's some mechanics you could scrap, and some other ones that could be better. I think there should be more use for the ore on drops from enemies, basically. And then, yeah, the components, especially disassembling, is a lot of mess. Especially with 4 people. You're supposed to buy a bunch of cloth armor and gloves, fill up your inventory, and then destroy them all. But if you've got 4 characters that have their own armor equipped, there's not really any inventory space to do that, so it's a real pain. I don't like that system. It's not quite as bad on weapons, but it's really bad on armor. And that's just, it's a lot of, like, the engineer really slows down the run. It's going to take way longer. What's my time? My time's like over 8 hours to finish the game. For a solo that wasn't really that hard, this is like half the speed I probably normally go through it, because we didn't really struggle with much on this run. Like, we actually zoomed through all the dungeons, I think, pretty cleanly. A couple deaths, but for a solo run, we actually did quite well. But And being able to stack our magic defense with the water ore was really helpful, I think. So, a strong class, but it is bogged down by taking a lot of player time to grind gold, to deconstruct, to buy extra items, to go to backtracking to the blacksmith, and crafting some side grades and upgrades, depending on what your build is. Overall, good, like, once or twice. But I really think for the longevity of the class, maybe some of those mechanics need to be simpled down. Because I don't see myself bringing these guys very often, just given how much slower they make the game and how much grinding for gold it takes. Maybe I should try one on New Game Plus, but they're kind of, I think unfortunately for Engineer, they're kind of in my too much hassle for the benefit group. Although they are quite good, I think the main thing I need is the gold grind and the item deconstruct, reconstruct thing to be simplified. And then I would not have that made. That's my major critique. Now, my minor critiques I've talked about, of course, a bit. I've talked about the crafting, I think, enough. But what I want to talk about is the tools, because I have talked about them a fair bit, and now that I've played through a couple times, I think I have a pretty good feeling for it. I have heard that there are some ways to buff these via other players, which is cool. Supposedly, you can enchant via a spell blade, and it affects your auto crossbow. That's cool, but the spell blade is so bad in general that that's probably not really a great strat. I think I talked about this during the run. My solution is, of course, to make them permanent. You craft them, you get the schematic, you craft them once, and you either use it forever, or you have some sort of spell slot system, well, not spell slot, but tool slot system, where the number you build is the number of times you can use them until you go back to an inn and repair them. I think that would be natural and relatively simple, and I probably wouldn't mind gathering the materials to craft 9 repeaters once, if I want 9, and then that's it, never having to do it again. As long as they're not consumable, it's a one-time investment of gold and time, and you don't have to build 9, you can just build 1 or 2, and you're probably okay if you don't use it very often. So, I think, I mean, I would be, maybe even optimally, you just spend gold, like, you find the schematic in a rare dungeon, which is a bit of a job, and then you bring it back to town, and spend some amount of gold to just build it. That's already, like, simple enough, and that's fine. That's how a lot of games do it. But I can see crafting once, but then it needs to be done. I think the repeat crafting is silly, and the war mech that just self-destructs is weird. I don't understand. It's so expensive to build, and it's not that good. Some of the ones that are really good, I can see being, like, a little bit on the overpowered side, but that's, okay, so that's the thing. Overall, I think the tools shouldn't need to be consumable. There needs to be a different system. And then there's some rebalancing that needs to be done. I've gone through this before, but I think focus crossbow is, as the stats are laid out, bad. I think the base damage on repeaters and auto crossbows is a bit too low most of the time. It's not always bad. There's a couple situations where it's good, but it's generally not enough. So how would I buff it? That's why I was thinking you use ore as a consumable for a battle or some number of battles or some number of uses, however it makes sense. Enchant these with an element. You consume fire ore to do fire damage. Consume ice ore to do ice damage. Maybe add special effects like burning or slowing or, you know, different status effects if you think that would be fun. It doesn't really matter. Maybe that could be an option. And then you just make it a permanent. You build one, and then you choose which one to upgrade it to if you want, and then it's just like that forever. I don't think you should be able to swap them out mid-dungeon. It's probably easier to balance them as you pick it once, or maybe you build the basic one and then you upgrade it when you're promoted, maybe. But even then, maybe you should just be able to do that from the beginning, because, well, I think using the ore would upgrade the auto crossbow, but I think, like, the flash bulb is so bad, unless you can change the status with some system like the ore, it's almost never going to be a good tool. That's, like, there's almost no situation where this is worth using. So having access to this fire spell or fire tool early on would actually make this slot something cool. Unfortunately, you would need to get this, like, by marsh or earth or ice cave. and then this 60 base damage fire spell would be pretty good. But the fact that you don't get it till promotion kind of means there's no real good use for it. By the time we have it, it's not strong enough to kill the Topher enemies, and nothing in the Water Shrine is weak to fire. So it's kind of like, you get it at the wrong time. That said, some of these abilities like Blink are really good. And to be fair, if you had a Dark Knight or Death Knight, you know, Flash and Floodlight would be decent. I mean, really good, honestly. But that's a pretty specific synergy. So I could see some amount of ore buffing or changing how they work if you want to customize them. If you want a consumable, if you want a cost, like have a cost to make them better than their basic version, and then let me just build 2 or 3 Molotovs for however much it costs to build them, and then I can just use those in the dungeon like normal. It's kind of the same thing. You get Bioblaster in Marsh. It's decently strong when you get it, but not against the enemies you're worried about. So the most dangerous enemies in Marsh are, of course, ghouls. I guess it kills crawls pretty okay. But, you know, the poison enemies, the undead that are immune to poison, this is pretty weak against. So being able to switch it to one of the water ones would be nice for Earth Cave especially. There's actually some enemies weak to water. But because it's promotion locked, you kind of get them a little bit too late. And once again, you unlock this right before the water dungeon. Unlocking a fire and water tool exactly before the dungeon that is resistant to both is kind of a troll. So I think you should be able to get these a little earlier. And again, maybe you could use the ore to add some different effects or some kind of consumable cost to make them a little different or better. I'm not sure that's even worth the effort, but yeah, I don't have a good idea for the Aqua Blaster. I think the Defortifier, Debilitator, D-something or rather is okay. It seems like it is, in terms of the Debilitator, only Fire, Ice, Lightning, Water, Wind, Earth from the little bit of testing I did. So that's good to know. It's unfortunate that it doesn't make weaknesses to like the status-y style elements, death, time, status, poison, stone, that kind of stuff. But as long as you know that those are excluded, it actually limits the pool, so it's more likely to hit one of the weaknesses you care about. If it only has 6 possibles, you got like a 50% chance to get the one you want of Fire, Ice, Lightning, Water, Wind, Earth. If you're unlucky, you'll get Water, Wind, Earth, and your Black Mage can do nothing. But as long as you get one of Fire, Ice, Lightning, they should always have something that works. So that actually is a plus. I just think it takes a turn to not hit anything, which is not great. But I don't think I would change too much on this. Maybe give it priority so it goes first. Anytime you're doing I don't kill stuff, but I'm setting up my friend, you should maybe consider giving it priority, because turn order is just going to waste your time. And after you've cast Fire 3 before Debilitator or Vulcanator goes off, and then killed all the enemies, or let's say half killed the enemies, and then Devulcanator goes at the end of the round, and then on the second round, everything's dead before you can cast Fire 3 again, you know, you just wasted your turn. You should have just, I don't know, done anything else, right? I could also see spending ore to give that specific weakness, if you really want to give perfect control as a consumable. Like, you spend some fire ore to give a fire or ice weakness, whichever way you prefer. Probably just keep it fire to fire. And then that way, if you want, you could power these up in a dungeon, like you're in the volcano, let's say, and you know everything resists fire and is weak to ice or water. So you just use your ice and water crystals from somewhere else, or ore, and you can just make your Debilitator force that weakness. I guess they already have it. Yeah, they already have it. But not everything in Volcano is weak to ice. So if you're just planning on using Ice 2 anyway, I mean, if you had the promotion version, you could do it. But maybe you could just spend the ore to force it if you wanted. I don't know. Or maybe you spend ore to give it, like, the auto effect, so it triggers at the beginning of battle. That might be worth a consumable resource. Because if you could start the battle by giving all enemies even a random weakness or one of these, then you're not losing a turn. And that would be, yeah, that might be a way to do it. You have to find a way to the interface, the toggling it on and off might be the trick. But having it, because there's precedent for that too. The bards have got an auto harp that applies sleep and random songs. I could see giving like maybe not 3, but like 1 random elemental weakness at the beginning of combat, or if you spend into it, you know, a specific one at the beginning of combat, or one of a 2, or like you kind of get a higher odds of the one you want. I think that would be the kind of upgrade that would make it work. If there was a way to balance that, I think that's maybe the kind of thing this kind of skill needs. The drill was generally not very strong. I understand it's meant to kill high armor enemies, and it does kill chaos, but it's way worse than most jobs can do it. And I think if we had tempered up or power gloved up and swung our hammer, we would have one-shot him. So I was using tools to kill chaos. I think because of the glove and fast stacking, the physical damage is always going to beat these right now against stuff like chaos. But I think the drill's a bit on the weak side. Again, maybe having some way to enchant it to make it a little bit better. A little bit more damage, if you could invest into it, would help. I feel like the AoE version is almost always a bad one, but I haven't tested it out, but it seems like the damage is too low. It's not really any better than the auto crossbow. Just ignores armor, which I mean, it's a little better for that, but... And then stunning yourself seems pretty bad. I think this needs to stun enemies for like 2 turns. If you're gonna stun yourself, you should probably get like two or 3 turns on the enemies. And it should be like basically guaranteed, because this is spending your turn and your next turn. So you're gonna lose 2 turns on your engineer. The enemy needs to be actually seriously disabled. I think this needs a major buff if you're going to use it. Maybe even full-on paralyzed would be better. Because they recover some percent of the time. That might be too strong, but... Nah, it's not that crazy. There's trance. This is on the drill and promotion. So once you're promoted, you certainly could have trance on a blue mage. Because you can get them in Ice Cave, right? It's a little bit of a job, but Ice Cave and Ordeals have sorcerers. Trance is non-elemental paralyze. Now, it does cost you a level 6 or something spell slot. But that's a pretty powerful spell. One of the best blue spells. And that is just nearly guaranteed paralyzed to all enemies. I think Overload needs to be closer to that, let's say. Especially if you're going to stun yourself. Lose 2 turns to paralyze the enemies. That might be okay. It still wouldn't be as good as Trance. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be Trance. But that's kind of the level I think it needs to compare with. The Noise Blaster is really good. I mean, it has to compete with the Noise Blaster. When would you stun... See, that's the thing. Because you have to be promoted, which means you have to go through Ice Cave. Which means unless you're just avoiding it, you have the Noise Blaster. So when would you ever spend your turn to stun yourself, maybe stun the enemy for 1 turn, instead of non-elemental, which is, I think, a higher chance to connect? I've almost never seen this miss. Every enemy loses at least 1 turn and hurts themselves or an ally, but possibly 2, 3, 4 turns, and you don't lose a turn. Like, it's not even close. So yeah, I think actually that's pretty clear. Overload needs to be paralyzed for real, not just 1 turn stun. And it needs to be very accurate if you're going to be stunned yourself. At least in my opinion. It's just my opinion, but unless I'm misreading it, it needs a major buff. Or Noise Blaster needs a nerf, but that would be sad. I think Alarm is fine. That's a fair choice. Megaphone, I think, is bad. It needs to be better. Like, this needs to be protection rather than recovery, or else it's never going to work. And another thing that might, if you select this, like, if this is the tool you dedicate your engineer to, if you do go the system where you just build 1 and you lock it in rather than switching all around, if you just have a megaphone, maybe you could have a passive build where you've got a bunch of tools that trigger effects at the start of battle. The engineer can no longer select them in battle because they trigger at the beginning. The auto crossbow does a little bit of damage. The debilitator picks a random weakness. The megaphone gives your team protection against sleep. It's not a very big buff, But like each one of these that you set to a passive trigger just starts at the beginning of battle and gives your group a small bonus, but then you don't have access to Noise Blaster. So this has to be pretty good to be an auto effect that is better than this, or at least comparable, competitive. But something like that, I think that'd be a fun way to balance it. You just have to pick one. One option is just a passive start of the battle, you know, might be not the hugest bonus, but just a small buff you get for free, which is cool for, like, thinking of the engineer as a support artificer kind of class. I think that would be really cool, and it would help reduce the need to just continue recrafting these over and over again. Craft it once, and you just get a nice passive effect. I think that would be a lot of fun and better than, like, honestly, even just being able to, like, I kind of think changing these mid-dungeon, it's a bit cheesy, and it's kind of a bit of time management, I think. Like, there's probably some players like, oh, this is really cool, Blue. I want to have 9, 9, 9, 9, and change them between each battle to optimize the perfect strategy. I hear you, but I think it might be better for the clock if some of those decisions weren't involved. Less crafting and the crafting class, and some more passive playstyles where you can just set it and forget it. Maybe you wouldn't always want to do that. Different builds would have different parties would have different builds, but I think that would be a viable choice. I still think Noise Blaster might be the better one, but you know, if you could make your party immune to sleep, and see, you're also only getting this at the point where ribbons become available, so you're kind of competing with ribbons too. Honestly, even making at this point post promotion, if you're, I think these should be pre-promotion, honestly. If you invested a resource, like I was trying to think of ways of customizing this, so you build it one way permanently once, and then you don't have to rebuild them ever again. But if you were spending ores to power them up a little bit temporarily, maybe you could put lightning ore, one of the harder ones to get, to give like 1 turn of paralyzed protection or 2 turns of paralyzed protection per battle or something like that. It wouldn't protect you for the entire fight, but at least on round 1, no one would be paralyzed. That would feel pretty good, because the first round is like the biggest one. You're probably going to kill some enemies. Just 1 round of, yeah, you know, that's the kind of thing. The first round of combat being immune to paralyze or some other status effect, whatever one you want, like immune to paralyze or stone or maybe even death for 1 round. That would be worth a slot on the tools, I think. That would definitely be something I would factor in. Like, sleep is okay, but some better statuses would be better. Yeah, that's, you know, something like that could be cool. Buzzsaw might be generally too strong. I think the death KO is not the main draw here. The damage scaling, to be fair, a lot of this is still factoring in the hammer. I'm not trying to separate that anymore, but you do get a significant upgrade. I think, yes, this is the way I think about it. I think you should have access to whichever tool you want once you find the schematic, or at least shortly after. Maybe once you go back to the dwarf cave or something. So you can get the basic one in the dungeon you get, and then you have to go back to the dwarf cave to, like, upgrade or permanently select the final tool. If you either keep it the way it is, or, you know, choose one of the 3 upgrades and stick with that. Maybe from the beginning that's fine. Maybe. I have to think about it, but I think that's probably not a deal breaker. Because once you get promoted, the hammer makes them all better. If you choose to go tools, you craft this, you equip this, and then they're all 50+% better. Yeah, I think that's fair for the upgrade. The promotion benefit is all your tools are better because of the hammer. The unlocking of the individual tools maybe should just come as you get the tool. So you can choose from when you get them all the cool stuff. Because locking it behind promotion it just forces it into a late game scenario. And a lot of the early ones, it's just, you're going to get them too late, you know? Yeah, I don't like having tons of skills locked behind promotion. It's okay for some of them, but especially if it was simplified, just allowing you access to the system early on, I think would be better. Anyway, Buzzsaw, this one does seem quite strong. Maybe too strong. And then the death maybe too weak. And the self-damage one, I think I mentioned this earlier, you need to really realistically do triple or quadruple the damage you take to yourself for this to be viable. Even with all the Genji armor on at level 50, we're probably only going to hit, well, maybe we could get 1,000 HP. Let's say you can get 1,000 with perfect Genji equipment or something like that. 500 damage is nothing, right? And that's at like level 50 with the best possible HP that you could have. You're going to halfway kill yourself to do 500 damage to an enemy. Now that will kill most things, but you also now have to heal yourself. And even if you've got a white mage or a green mage, that's a spell slot. And your hammer probably could kill that enemy anyway, let alone the rest of your team. So it really needs to be way stronger, and it's still not great. You know, even if this did the same damage as Buzzsaw, taking half the damage yourself obviously is worse. And Buzzsaw was doing 4 hits at... So I was doing like 800 damage times 4. This would do 400 damage to the enemy, to one enemy and myself. So Double Saw maybe needs to hit all enemies or something significantly increased. If you want to have a mechanic like this, it's got to be way better, I think. Right now, Buzzsaw is the obvious pick, so you need a way to balance them out. Maybe it should be a bit weaker. Maybe the other one should be a little bit stronger. It is the second last tool. You only get this in the Water Shrine, so it should be pretty good given it's a late game tool. I'm not upset that the Buzzsaw is very strong, but I think I would like the other ones to be competitive. Maybe as a passive version, you could have a beginning of the battle low percent death elemental KO attempt. Like, all enemies have a 10 or 20% chance, assuming they're not resistant to death, to just die at the beginning of battle if you invest. If you don't build the awesome damage dealing one, just the beginning of every battle, there's a chance to kill a couple enemies. It's fairly low, even 20%. If you had 9 bad men, you probably kill 1 or 2. That's not that crazy. But then again, there's a 20% chance that Carrie just dies instantly. Maybe the bosses are immune. That'd be okay. That would be okay if the bosses were immune to that kind of passive. Is there any other passives I could think of? Free shot or a free heal, something like that at the beginning of a fight for auto crossbow. One peppering of light damage would be kind of neat for a free ability. An attempt at darkness or some other garbage stat at the beginning of combat. The Death Knight would love it. But yeah, this could be like a minor status effect at the beginning of combat. Or poison, like not a lot of damage necessarily, but like it's like gassing the field, you know, all the enemies start poisoned. It's still not very impressive, but at least poisoning all the enemies at the beginning of battle would be better than spending a turn to then do 2 to 3. I think Bio is it like 3 to 18 damage? It's still not very much. It might need to be stronger to be ever something I care about, but I could see something like the Bio Blaster starting some poisoning at the beginning. Random status. Drill could maybe... What would be a passive for a drill? If you decided you didn't want to use the drill, then a passive version could just be... I don't know. That's a hard one. Maybe this is the one where you give a defense buff to yourself. Like you put all your armor on or something and you get like the fog effect or something. I don't know. I'm not the expert, but yeah. Anyway, the final one is Warmech, and it's so late in the game. They're okay. I don't know. You only get them at the end. It's kind of like any of the super late game skills that you only get after you can beat Tiamat, basically. It should probably be a little bit stronger, but that's just because it's locked to the final dungeon, basically. The blue Warmech is okay. It does absorb a fair number of attacks. Like, Chaos hit the blue Warmech probably more than he hit us, but the AoEs, you know, still get through. So it's a pretty good tank. Nuclear isn't amazing without some buffs. I think it sounds cooler than it is for how expensive this would be, and the fact that it does cost you a turn to deploy them. So you're losing a turn to set up for later, and that's usually not very helpful, but it helped against Chaos a little bit. I don't really have anything to say about the Warmechs. I think they're okay, but yeah. Okay, so anyway, I guess that's my final thoughts on Engineer. Kind of went on a bit there, but I hope it does get a little bit simplified and the crafting takes less time at the very least. And I kind of hope we don't get too many crazy complicated jobs in the future. I am a bit of a fan of somewhat simple to use. Because the jobs I like the least are Archer for a variety of reasons, but farming for materials is not a big fan. Spellblade I don't like much. Farming the level ups for his spells is annoying, and he's also not great in other aspects. The Beastmaster, I don't love trying to capture rare enemies and then have them run away or die. So there's kind of like that secondary grind time involved for stuff like that. So this guy is another one of those jobs that has like a secondary grind to get materials and gold. And that on its own is definitely like it's a negative overall. But I think overall the class is good. It's a positive. It's just that's like holding him back a little bit for me. I also don't like the green mage. He doesn't have any weird resources. It's just really weak. And the summoner. But yeah, the resource gathering jobs I think are going to always be a bit on the low end for me. So anyway, I guess I should leave it there. Engineer, still I'm very like one last thing I will say once again, the developer Osmo has clearly put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So please don't mistake anything I'm saying as like harsh criticism. I mean it in the intent of simply enjoying the game, the Renaissance version, more. That I think it's good. I think it's a lot of fun. I very much appreciate the time. I don't know how to say it, but clearly developing and programming and trying to balance and fit in these extremely complicated jobs into the Final Fantasy 1 system is a tremendous amount of work. I'm not saying I could actually do it better. I'm just saying, given what I'm observing and my experiences, there are some maybe not too difficult tweaks that I think would improve it. My balance will be different than your balance, and it's different than Osmo's balance. But some things I think are as close to objective as I can be, just worse or bad. And those ones should maybe be upped a little bit. Some mechanics could be streamlined or smoothed out a little bit. And that would probably make the game even better. And it is a really good game. I just want to see it succeed, you know? I want more content for the YouTubes. That does remind me... we can't go shopping at we can't buy weapons and armor to craft without bringing the base class. So the final tweak that's sort of related to how the engineer mechanics work is definitely give me a quality of life feature for disabling the weapon shop, what do you call it, filter. Because right now it only sells you weapons and armor if one of your party members can equip it, which does make it simpler to navigate. I think that's a good default on like condition, but I think you should be able to turn it off if you want, mostly so that the engineer can buy stuff to craft other things that you need for a class. Like the classic one is the fighter. If you want to make the sword chucks, you need to buy an iron nunchuck to craft it. However, if you do not bring a black belt, or I'm not sure if anyone else can even equip nunchucks, but if at least a black belt. If you cannot bring a black belt, you cannot craft the fighter's thing. So that means you need a fighter and an engineer and a black belt just to make the fighter's weapon. And I think there's a similar thing with the samurai thing. You need an archer available to get the samurai's weapon crafted by the engineer. I think that kind of thing is silly. I think it's the same kind of problem I have with the thief being the only way to get certain ultimate late game weapons and armor for specific classes. It's a bit too coupled. You use a programming term. You have to do this to get that. They're tied together. There's no way to do one without the other. And that's okay in like limited quantities, just like in programming. It's not always an auto negative. But the tighter it is, the harder it is to separate, the more you're limited. In a game where I want to do different builds and different parties, that tight, like the fact that you need this class to do this, it actually limits the options. Like, sure, you might say, but Blue, that means you should do a party with a black belt, a fighter, and an engineer so that you can see that cool combo. I don't think it's going to be that cool. And I would rather have done it when I had a fighter and engineer rather than do a almost the same party. And if you want sword chucks, that just means anytime you want them, you have to bring 3 out of 4 people specifically. That only leaves you 1 other random slot in your group if that's what you want to do. It already cost you 2 slots to get it because of the engineer crafting mechanic and a fighter to equip it. And the thief is like that. You need the thief and a red mage to equip the red armor. You need a thief and a dancer to equip the assassin's dagger. Although I think someone else, maybe the samurai can do that too now. You need a thief and a death knight to equip the best greatsword. It's like there's a few jobs that need a thief to get their stuff, and now there's a few jobs that need an engineer and a third job to get their stuff. I think that's not the way I wouldn't. I don't think that's great. I mean, I don't think that should really be a thing. I think it would be better again in general to not have it super coupled. It's more fun to just. I feel like I want more flexibility in my. There's so many jobs now. Like, I want to be able to mix and match and bring different jobs. That's why I want all the jobs to be competitive. I don't want the green mage to be bad and the summoner to be bad and the spellblade to be bad. And I'm using my own subjectivity there, of course, but I think a lot of people would agree that some jobs are pretty bad compared to, you know, fighters and red mages and stuff. So I want to be able to bring them, have them contribute and feel interesting, but I don't want to be locked into, well, if I bring this one, I have to bring these 3, and that just sets the whole party a certain way. So now that there's like 20 or something jobs, is how many? Let me. I haven't actually counted them. I think it's 20 now, right? New game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, 20 jobs. That's a lot of different groups. If you're just doing 4-man teams, that is a lot of different combinations. And the less tied together any 2 or 3 groups are, like packs of 3, the easier it is to just experiment. And maybe if you're looking for fun runs yourself, you should be able to come up with a cool combo that literally no one has ever played with, or at the very least no one has recorded or streamed or something. Like, it should be almost trivial to make a 4-man team that no one has ever done. For now, at least. I mean, as time goes on, people run more and more, but I think that's... If there's one thing that I think Renaissance really has going, it's the number of jobs makes it very replayable. And it maybe does need a little bit more difficulty, and there's some balancing and stuff, but the fact that there are now 20 jobs, and presumably more coming, that is a very big... I think that's why I'm still recording these series, right? It's that there's so many different combinations that make me creative and think about cool ideas. And I like the solo challenge, just it's good for the YouTube content anyway, but I enjoy like really diving deep into the different jobs, at least once, and so I see how they work. It's a nice way to learn how they work. But it does give you a lot of options for like interesting runs. And as much as I love the vanilla game, there's only so many combinations that are interesting before you're like, I have mastered FF1. And that's why the randomizer is so much fun for that too. Shout out for them as well. Randomizer is great. Boy, what a world would be if we could somehow combo... I know we've talked about this in the comments a couple times, but the randomizer, which randomizes like enemy power, skills, magic, location potentially, the location of weapons, armor, key items, progression, the order you do dungeons in, stats on enemies. Like, the randomizer for FF1, by the way, is absolutely incredible. The developers for that have gone way above and beyond. It won't ever be compatible because it uses an NES ROM to randomize the game. This is not an NES ROM. This is a full designed, programmed in Unity, modern game engine, just doing 2D sprites, basically. I think Osmo would have to specifically code the randomizer himself, or open source it and get someone else to do it, and that would be a ton of work. I don't think it's very likely, but boy, what a world would that be if you could combo that. I think that might be my dream, is something like Renaissance with all the extra jobs and weapons and armor and special stuff. Throw in the randomizer as well, so you can really get that, honestly, like nearly infinite replayability. There are so many ways to change the course, because I think even for how much FF Renaissance I've done so far, it is a bit samey, right? Every New Game Plus run kind of has the same play if you bother with repels. If we're doing solo challenges, it's always Marsh, Earth, Ice, and then everything else is kind of free. Except sometimes Astos, but generally that's not too bad. And we always end up crazy overpowered. In normal mode, at least, with a 4-man group. So, like, there is some lack of replayability in that sense, in that it's the base game stays the same, and it's got the hard parts that are hard and the easy parts that are always easy. And especially with the general power creep, the overall Renaissance jobs are stronger than vanilla, hands down. Like, they're all better than the original versions, and the game isn't really any harder. In fact, it's probably easier, which isn't bad. I'm just saying maybe we do need at some point a challenge up, either a randomizer that can give enemies more stats and stuff, or just a way to scale enemy HP, 100, 200, 300%, and maybe a little bit of damage up. Although they don't need double, triple damage. They just need more HP and resistances and stuff, and it would make it a fair bit harder. But anyway, I've rambled on. I have yapped my yapping. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'm not sure what's next. I'm definitely going to take a break from Engineer for a couple runs. I think, just to give you a little sneak peek, there are, a variety of achievements. I'm not really planning on doing achievement hunting. Apparently, I still haven't bought all the white magic spells. I'm not sure which ones I've missed, but there's probably a couple garbage ones that I've somehow just never bothered to buy. That does include green magic spells and anyone else who buys spells from the white magic shop. So it's not necessarily white mage, but something. Use every weapon skill in combat. Yeah, I tried to use a lot during the samurai, never got there. Craft every type of magic tool. That will require some work because you got to do specific party builds. Forge everywhere weapon and armor, same thing. I probably could have done that one, but might have missed some resources. Built all those. There's more secrets. There's tons of secret achievements. Challenges. More weapon skills again. Single skill chain using 4 different weapon types. That's not that hard to do. I've got my save file for a level 50 samurai. Easy peasy, really. Genocide does take a while, but we're halfway there. Some people are like, oh, this achievement takes forever. This is scaled way too high. I'm like, no, hold my beer. This is easy. I've just gotten started and I'm halfway through. Now, it is a significant time investment, but we're getting there. I never bothered to grind for tons of money. It's not that hard. It's just time consuming. Maximum damage with exuviation. I think this must be a new achievement because I should have already got it. Because I've definitely done wall exuviates. Although now it would be wall plus a water, a wind, and is there a holy? I don't know if that's a possible one, but the max exuviation now requires perhaps even more than a wall. But maybe the barrier limit would just do it, and Green Mage just gets this for free. I don't know. It's supposed to be a challenge. But here's some of the ones I was thinking about doing. So, beat the game with never using an inn, which means you have to basically only save via... I mean, you can technically, if you're only doing this one, you can purchase tents. So it's actually very easy if you only do this. I mean, very easy. It's a little bit hard at the beginning, and then after that, you're just paying the house tax. So once you can get 3,000 gold to get your spells back, this is easy. Of course, if you're doing a no spellcaster run, you just need to heal up, and tents will do that just fine. Penny Pincher is don't spend too much money. This is probably quite easy. 100,000 gold is lots. You just can't really buy gold bracelets and high-level spells. But you could still do a spellcaster. You just don't buy much past level 5 magic. And don't buy the expensive stuff. But you could also get away with like a no armor gear. And then this is the one I think people are interested in, is never buy weapons and armor. So I'm trying to think. I've also done some of the weird ones. You know, solo classic and of course a solo renaissance. Also never used repel. I think I did that by default on the first time accidentally. Yeah, I've done lots of these. I mean, I've done a lot basically, even non-promotions. But I think I'm trying to find out if there's a way to do these 3 at once. Never use an inn, don't spend too much money, and never buy weapon and armor. So, there is a good amount of free weapons and armor in the game. You don't have to be like, I need 4 black belts for this. That's not true. Even a fighter you could gear just by the stuff you find. It will be a little bit harder, but you do get like a free iron armor in the Marsh Cave, which will basically carry you until the free ice and flame armor. And there is like a full set of silver gear as well. And there's really quite good weapons around, you know, eventually all your best weapons are from treasures anyway. So you just can't buy that silver sword early. You're going to have to use you can get like a free short sword, I think. So you're going to be a little bit behind in the early game, and that will be a bit harder. But I could see trying this. I don't think the engineer would work, because you can't get very much silver without buying silver, and you can't craft mithril without silver armor to deconstruct until you get to on-rack. That's pretty late. So I don't think the engineer like undoes that problem. But like, I think you just need a way. I guess you could play on New Game Plus. That would make other things problem. You start with like 5,000 gold, so I could basically buy as many tents as I wanted. If I built the right party, I'll have to think about it. But this is what I'm thinking for my next run anyway. And I think eventually I'm gonna want to do a New Game Plus with these guys. I'm tired of the engineer mechanics, but I should see what they're like when you start promoted, because that does change things a bit, you know. Anyway, I keep going on. Thanks for watching, folks. You got a little sneak peek there. Next time, I'm not sure. I might take a couple days off and let these videos get some views and see what the comments are, but I think I've still got a couple more Renaissance runs in me. Although, now I am at the point where I've done most of the solo runs I want to do. So, it's like, what other kind of cool combos for groups I can think of? And I've done a lot of them. Like, I did the Martial. I'm not going to revisit the old Martial group. I know. Ditch the Spellblade, bring the Samurai. The 4 Marshals is way better. But the 4 Mages was great. The 4 Support was okay. The 4 Scrubs was, you know, not as bad as it might have been, I suppose. But anyway, let's leave it. Thanks for watching. I got to end somehow. Hope you guys have enjoyed the series, and 2026, there might be some more. At some point, it will end. I promise you. We can't be doing this forever, but it's been fun. I'm enjoying it. See you next time.